Welcome everyone to another online teaching session. I'm Bhante Warapanyo. I've been an American Buddhist monk for the past 6 years, and I've been following the Buddhist path for more than a decade. Many people approach this path with a lot of wrong ideas and kind of misguided perceptions about what is necessary to achieve realization, to achieve the enlightenment. So most of the Buddhist teachings and monks that you come across online and the programs that you'll have access to as a person in the West, as an American, are going to be kind of preliminary instructions, helping to give you a platform, helping to give you guidance on how to simplify and stabilize the mind. If your mind is not simple and stable, if it doesn't have a connection to peacefulness or awareness, if it doesn't give much importance to just being aware, then most teachings will not be accessible or available to you. As they say, when the student is ready, a teacher will appear. And as they also say, unless your mind is ready, it doesn't matter if the Buddha himself or Mother Teresa herself or the spiritual king of chakra, Reiki, Kundalini, enlightenment, transformation kind of showed up at your doorstep. It wouldn't matter. You wouldn't listen to them. And even if you did listen to them, you wouldn't be able to put into practice what they taught you or what they showed you. And what that means is that a lot of the spiritual teachings that you find online, whether that's through YouTube or even at your local meditation center, are at best going to be preliminary teachings, and at worst are really just going to be a method of helping you to convince yourself about something, and then that leading you to paying money for some meditation retreat or kind of coping with life in a way that is more spiritual or informed by spiritual ideas or ideas of enlightenment. The truth is not about anything in Buddhism or in true spiritual teachings. The truth is not about anything. It's not about anyone. It's not about some particular method or some particular philosophy or any kind of belief system, really. So there is a mysterious nature to truth in Buddhism. There's a mysterious nature to truth in non-duality, in Advaita Vedanta, in not being someone, in having a body, in being alive, in breathing, in doing things, in going places or being at a place, but not being someone. The reason that these preliminary practices are so prevalent and are mostly what you'll come across in the spiritual scene in Buddhist communities or with Buddhist teachers is because the habit energy, the power of attachment, the power of buying and selling, the power of grasping is so strong that basically all that those teachers can support you to do is to grasp onto something that's better than what you're currently grasping onto. And this is why those teachings are called preliminary practices, because it's still in the realm of grasping. It's still in the realm of attachment. Now, if you want to lose weight, you should eat this food and you should not eat that food. If you want to become enlightened, then you should do this and you should not do that. That's true preliminarily. That's true as someone who's trying to do something. But the mysterious nature of the truth in Buddhism is that it's not about someone doing something. Someone cannot become enlightened. I, as a monk, cannot become enlightened. Buddha kind of means awake or aware, or the recognition of awareness. In a society, in a culture, in a community, in a way of life that's all about someone doing something at some place in some situation for some reason, this is revolutionary. This is not a normal teaching. This is not a normal situation. This is not a normal person. This is not a normal place. And while we tend to have a drive for seeming to be individuals and seeming to have, it's really easy to get stuck in that, right? That, oh, I have this personal identity, I have these personal habits, I have this personal situation that I'm in. Dropping that is a revolution of everything that is not something already. So even though we tend to kind of adopt like a personal revolution mindset where like I'm an individual and I'm having a unique experience, I'm having a personal experience that's not the same as ordinary people or the society, etc., because that's where we get our independence, our uniqueness from, right? The uniqueness in Buddhism is more along the lines of mysteriousness. Mysteriousness that is not understandable. And if you cannot understand something, you have to put in work to understand that. You have to do research, you might have to do some training. But not understanding is natural. So a baby doesn't understand anything. A baby doesn't understand what a mother is. A baby doesn't understand the notion of a personal identity. And so a baby is a kind of a connection point or a teaching point for the natural law or the truth of nature, which is a mystery. It's a mystery in terms of someone trying to understand it. This is not stressful. Not understanding something is not stressful. It's just not understanding. What is stressful, what leads us to be jumping around from person to person and place to place and situation to situation and constantly being in this this feeling of being worked up is not about ourselves personally. It's not about our personal identity. It's not about what you did in the past or what someone else did in the past. It's not about someone. Cause and effect. This is because of that. The interconnectedness of everything is not talking about something in particular. So dropping the view of someone in particular, dropping the view of something in particular, gives allowance, gives the openness to stop grasping, to stop chasing, to stop figuring out, to stop solving. This is not easy or difficult. It's not about it being easy or difficult, just in the same way that it's not about understanding or not understanding. It's not about a thing. It is nothing. Nothing is not about something. Once this is taken in to be valuable and important by you as a person, a revolution or a revelation of mysteriousness can take place. When this revelation of mysteriousness takes place, this is when we can start to go beyond preliminary practices. Or rather, this is when we can truly start to make use of the preliminary practices without attachment, or where we can start to make use of the preliminary practices with wisdom, or with mindfulness and detachment. This is what the Buddha was talking about, actually. It's not difficult, but it's also not easy. The difficultiness or the easiness is about someone. Someone having some experience, someone being somewhere, someone doing something. Spirituality and Buddhism have been largely commercialized, largely dried out, not emancipated, but emaciated. By consumerism, by capitalism, by the desire to understand, by the desire to be in authority, by the desire to be in control, by the desire to be someone, doing something. This applies to most all spirituality. When we talk about spirituality, when we talk about Buddhism, when we talk about the mysterious truth, the only thing that is being talked about is your mind. Nothing exists outside of your mind. No one, no thing, no place, no situation exists outside of your mind. If I were to describe what the developmental path of spiritual life, understanding Buddhism, developing in true freedom looks like, it looks like Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. It looks like mixed martial arts or karate. You may have thought about Buddhism, you may have thought about spirituality, you may have thought about meditation, you may have thought about your understanding, your depth of understanding about it. That is just a thought. And if you were someone in this analogy that was seeking to pursue development in what they were interested in true freedom, interested in enlightenment, interested in spiritual Reiki, power, etc., then you need to show up. And when you show up, your ass is going to get kicked. You're going to get a beat down. And that beat down, that horribleness, that ego drop, ego erasure, ego topsy-turviness is a sign that you're serious about this. There's two groups of people, maybe three groups of people. One is going to go to the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu gym that they've just thought about, and it's very important to them, right? Buddhism's very important to me. I've thought a bunch about it. I've read a bunch about it. I've done meditation. And now you go to the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu gym and you get your butt beat. You get dominated. At that time, you give up. You say, this isn't for me. This isn't what I'm really serious about. I'm going to focus on other things. I'm not going to focus on true freedom or enlightenment now. The second kind of person goes to the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu gym and gets their butt beat. And they didn't like that. They didn't like that something that was very important to their ego, to their self, something that had a lot of grasping to it, turned out to be not the way that they thought that it was. They turned out to not be in authority. They turned out to not be skillful or experienced in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. So, because they cannot be as skillful or as wise as the first person, they now have developed a kind of psychosis in their mind, a psychosis about someone at some place, at some situation. They got their butt beat, but that psychosis has justified that butt beating as about someone, some situation, some place, and especially someone else who's lesser than them. So they go off and cycle in their madness, in their spiritual insanity. They don't make progress. The third kind of person shows up to the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu gym. They've done a bunch of meditation. They've studied a lot of Buddhist teachings. They love Buddhism. They're a Buddhist. They've even practiced at some temples. They go to the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu gym and they get torn apart. They get beat bad. Because the people there, they saw this person had some skill. They wanted to teach him a lesson. That's just how it worked out. And after getting there, just torn apart in that Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu gym, they said, this is what I was looking for. This is what I'm serious about. This is what I'm interested in. We have to be the third kind of person moment by moment in the face of unsatisfactoriness, in the face of suffering. We have to allow the self, we have to allow the someone, the something, the some situation, the some place, the some period of time to be eviscerated by the Dhammas, by the phenomena. And about this, and aware enough about this to show up, to be aware, to experience what's happening. Because what's actually happening is not intellectual, conceptual, story-based. What's actually happening right now doesn't exist in space or time. What's happening right now does not have someone in it actually. Now this is the mysteriousness, this is the mysterious teaching. If you grasp this, it's not mysterious. You can't get a hold of a mystery. That's why it's a mystery. But if you can be open enough, like the third person was, to not grasp onto being right, to not grasp onto understanding, to not grasp, then the awareness of mysteriousness can dissolve naturally those wrong formations of thought, those confused formations of thought that are based in self, that are based in permanent, separate things, that are based in someone. The satisfaction, the fulfillment of someone, the freedom of someone. In this way, suffering and nibbana are the same. Suffering is about someone. Nibbana is about someone. Not someone is true nibbana, true enlightenment. True enlightenment or real enlightenment, no someone can attain that. As time goes by, and as we practice seriously according to our karma, according to our blessings and our merits, maybe we find a teacher, maybe we get involved with a meditation center or a Buddhist community. This doesn't become less mysterious, it becomes more mysterious. It becomes more moment by moment experiential. This is where the wisdom is, or the skillfulness of the wise ones is. That this too is impermanent. that this too is not reliable, that this too doesn't exist separately as a thing. What is this? Questions so far? Okay. That is the ordination of a new nun in the community. How to live in both worlds of person. I'm not really sure what you mean by that. But if you mean how can we live in the world of seemingly being someone, and how can we live in the world of seemingly not being someone, it is not complicated. Stop relying on seemingly. Seemingly is actually not about someone. Seemingly is not about some situation. Seemingly is not concerned with the truth. That's the nature of seemingly, right? That's the nature of the word. Seemingly is concerned with avoidance. Stop avoiding your life. Stop avoiding the direct experience of this. Stop conceiving about stop thinking about thought. I or you is always wrong. This is why generosity is right. Because generosity is not about you. It's not about I. I will always be wrong. I will always be in the realm of separation. It will always be in the realm of seeming. This seems that way, that seems that way. I is useful. But if you attach to I, then you cannot use it freely. You cannot be free. When we detach from you, when we detach from I, everything, anything can be used freely without contrivance. I wants to get something. I wants to be something, wants to become, wants to continue. But not I or not someone doesn't want anything. The reason that people don't have success in meditation, and the reason that people don't develop much of any wisdom, and that people are always confused and don't listen, okay, and are constantly making problems for themselves and others unnecessarily. Sometimes it's necessary to make problems because of the cause and conditions, the situation that you're in. You have to learn through making problems, right? Making errors. That's how we learn to not make errors, to be free from error. Is because this notion, this idea of this feels good, this feels bad, is what we rely on. This thought good, that thought bad. It's kind of not a monkey mind, but it's a caveman mind or a cave woman mind. This good, very good. This bad, very bad. And that is the kind of real stupidity. Real stupidity is not about lack of development. It's not about people having disabilities, not about people being good or bad at math or reading or speaking in a certain way. Real stupidity is about this feels good, I know good. This feels bad, I know bad. Stop doing like that, and wisdom will have a chance to express itself, or at least samadhi, absorption into direct experiencing, will have a chance, will have the space. This is the space to just be without conceiving about things. This looks good, I eat it. Well, there was poison in that, now you're dead. This looks bad, I don't eat that. Well, now you're 100 pounds overweight, 200 pounds overweight, or vice versa. You're underweight, you're undernourished. I don't like vegetables. this YouTube channel and my life and my underdeveloped teachings that I share here on YouTube is to facilitate and to support people to detach from themselves. That's what I can say. That's what I can share. I am not a mother with breasts nursing children. I encourage you to detach from what you think, what you believe about yourself and also about me, about the world, about Buddhism. Then practice generosity. That means doing good deeds, all kinds. I am a meditation master. So I know how to be successful in meditation, how to develop samadhi, how to develop wisdom. But I cannot give that to anyone else. Just like I cannot give my brain to anyone else. Or I could give my eye to someone else, but it's not going to be any good. I could give my brain to someone else, but I don't know, you wouldn't want that anyway. And then, I'd be dead. So following a spiritual teacher is mainly about being willing to detach from yourself. That also includes your ideas of the spiritual teacher and yourself. To practice dana, to practice generosity, to follow precepts, to practice meditation, and buckle up and buckle in. And to the degree that I help you or help to facilitate you to do those things, to practice that way, you're good to go. But this path of Buddhism it's not just about strength, and it's not just about skill. Or power and congruency of thought or congruency of action leading to development, success. It's about those elements of skill and power being developed through getting the shit beat out of you, in so many words. It's dukkha. It's not having a nice house. It's not having a good relationship. It's not being wealthy. It's not feeling good. That's not what the Buddha taught. Now, in terms of preliminary practices and methods, he helped people, he gave guidance for that. But in terms of the mysterious truth that no one talks about, the Buddha talked about it. Dukkha, suffering, difficulty, unsatisfactoriness, unsatisfiedness. I'm a monk, so I I can share from this position. I don't have to sell anything. I don't have to convince you of anything to grow my YouTube channel, to pay my bills. I don't have any bills. I have needs as a human being and as a teacher and, things that go along with that. But I don't need a house. I don't need a car. I don't need followers. I don't need status. It's, there's so much to get to, so much accessibility to go and get that, but I don't need any of that. And you also don't need any of that. True freedom is not about that, about being comfortable in your life. This is reliable. Being comfortable in your life is not reliable. This requires sacrifice. Maybe those early, I don't know who, was it early Christians? Was it pagans? Was it whoever it was, early Hindus that are doing sacrifices, right? You sacrifice a bull or an ox or whatever. There's some good point to it. Just like with generosity, as much as you'll find one good monk or one good spiritual teacher, you'll find 10,000, mindfulness instructors or 10,000 fake gurus in India or wherever that want to drive a nice car, that want to have a nice house, that want to develop a nice situation for themselves. And so they get all these people who are dying, desperate. Aren't we? Desperate. Convince me. Convince me. Convince me about someone. Convince me about something. What a relief. I'm convinced. This is a great movie. This is a great teacher. This is a great situation. Then they give him all this money or look at the Americans, right? The prosperity gospel. Give unto me and you will get into heaven. You will get back, so much. Well, the reason that they're able to do this is not just because of the stupidity of people, because the advancedness of the scheme, to trick and to manipulate, because underlying stupidity or whatever selfishness people have is what? It's innocence. Even the worst people, underneath that, how they cause suffering in the world is a kind of innocence. They have a baby in them. They have a child in them. Wants to be happy, wants to be peaceful, wants to be free, wants to live a good life, wants to have a good rest, wants to have a good meal. But that there's a truth to sacrifice. There's a truth to giving away what you are attached to. And if we develop this within ourselves, that's power. This is an essential element, okay, is power. Just like in arm wrestling, okay? And the other essential element that if we don't have power is not really going to develop is skillfulness. This is how we learn to give, we learn to sacrifice, we learn to renounce beautifully, wonderfully, profoundly. So there is a power in sacrifice. There is a power in giving away. There is a power in putting down, where our grasping, what we hold on to, what we lift up. There's a power in that. Now that power without skill, without wisdom, is going to have many side effects, okay? But still, you get the power from it. And everybody already knows, if you don't know, here's your news flash. If our society was built on generosity, if we had more people that could renounce their life as money, life of money, or renounce their life of just using for themselves, okay? Everybody would have food, everybody would have water, everybody would have energy, everybody would have a phone, everybody would have everything easily, because this is a post-scarcity society. We climbed down from the tree, and then we hung out for a while, and then we planted seeds and said, whoa, it's figured out. Materially, it's figured out. Spiritually, it's not. So this is also a part of, my mission as a monk is very revolutionary. And that's just my disposition. But the development, the realization, the mysteriousness of what is already, that is where the power and the wisdom come from. And that's what the power and wisdom are, not personal, not someone, not something. In the same way that you or I, even though I'm sick right now, but could get a lot sicker, are blessed, profoundly, profoundly blessed to be a human being and to have a healthy body. I'm also blessed to be a monk. I'm blessed to be a beggar, to be a bhikshu. I'm blessed to live on the support of other people. I'm blessed to be concerned with the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the Sangha full time. I'm a blessed person. I'm a blessed monk. But if you attach to that blessing as being something permanent, as being something fixed, that is where the problem is. So that's the answer to Jonsky's question. Nothing is fixed. Your life is not fixed. Your seeing is not fixed. Your hearing is not fixed. The countries aren't fixed. The earth isn't fixed. It means solid. Any questions or any requests? Song requests? Or If you don't have questions, that's good, but if you do have questions that are close to your heart, that can be even better. For the others, not for yourself. Sometimes we have to ask a question. And if it's neither or, practice meditation, seriously. My mind is a clear blue sky is wrong. The mind is a clear blue sky is right. Being in charge, being in control, when it is about someone, is very dangerous. Cause and effect only. Doing good deeds only. Mindfulness and detachment only. It's not just about this life. It's about future lives. It's about past lives. And it's about no birth and no death. More or less is how you bake a cake. Nothingness is the nature of spaciousness, or the natural law. This is also cause and effect, is the natural law. The problem that many people have, most people have, that are coming into contact with me and the way that I teach here, the way that my teachings are, is that people expect, because they have money, or because they know how to drive a car, or because they know how to breathe, or because they have food in their fridge, etc., they expect that when they go to a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu gym, they're going to be able to have some kind of success with a black belt or a brown belt. This is in the realm of non-duality, so it's not about degrees of enlightenment with attachment. But that is why people cannot follow, cannot practice, cannot develop. You shouldn't expect to understand what I'm saying. You haven't done what I've done. You haven't sacrificed what I've sacrificed. You haven't lived what I've lived. That's not about higher or lower. That's just about, this is Bante's Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu gym. And I'm a black belt in Bante Jiu-Jitsu. And I'm primarily concerned with, whether people like it or not, or believe that or not, I'm primarily concerned with the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the Sangha. And it's through my experiences that I share, okay, my lived experiences, practical, simple, experiential experiences of doing intensive meditation retreats, of being a Buddhist monk for the past 6 years, of taking refuge in the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the Sangha, and well-known meditation masters around the world, that I'm in this position. The jujitsu analogy is, it's really about this contact point when it comes to spiritual practice or spiritual life. This is not a philosophy. It's not about what you think about it. It's more like there's a moment-to-moment experiencing going on. There's a moment-by-moment happening going on. And that happening is having contact each and every moment. And that contact is not personal. It's not your personal contact. It's the contact of interbeing. And so all the phenomena, body, mind, environment, everything, contacting, that's where the ignition point is. That's where the wisdom point is. That's where the capacity to solve the problem, to have success, to win is. And that's very similar to something like Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. That contact, that interconnectedness, that interplay of everything. And the positive point about it is this humanness that goes along with it, right? When you do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, when you walk the path of spirituality, even though most people, for sure, don't have contact with this, right, is in community. It's with other human beings. It's on the ground. And it's according to cause and effect. It's according to natural law, not our trickiness, not our wealth, not our intelligence, not our preferences. The same with Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. If you just have a bunch of intelligence about it, but you don't have strength, there's nothing there. So the real intelligence when it comes to spiritual life is this connection of strength and real intelligence, with it, which is wisdom. They inter-are. They're not separate. Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu or arm wrestling, if you can detach, you can win. Okay, we're at the 1 hour point. I know that I've said way more than I should, too much. Even so much that even saying that is ridiculous. But I can confess that I don't care about being ridiculous. I care about mindfulness and detachment and doing good deeds, which, is my gratitude about, this platform and the people who are following and involved in different ways. A friend of mine made a song for me, and a young boy who I've been in contact with online from Sri Lanka, who is having some issues with bullying. Let me see if I can pull this song up and share it with everyone.
Present world spinning chaos all around. Fountain in the silence, wisdom profound. Bounty voted banyo, rock flows gold. Taught a restless soul how to be bold. Mind like a fortress, peaceful like the sea. He's seen through the fog, now he guided me. Meditations in the morning, sunrise and two. Breathing in serenity, sky so blue. Wild visions in the night, demons took their toll. He showed me how to center, find peace in the whole. Jungle of the modern life, his words cut clear. A lighthouse in the storm, no fear, he's near. Haunted, haunted master of the mind. Guiding me to moments where true peace I find. Haunted, haunted wisdom in his hands. On the noble path he helps me understand. Temple bells chime, reality unwinds. Karma's gentle dance, no rewind. Auntie spoke of Dharma, teachings of the wise. Cleared the clutter, opened up my eyes. Nirvana in the distance, steps so small. Journey with his presence, never let me fall. Mindful steps, every lesson clear. Taught to let go, no need to steer. Compassion is my compass, love without bounds. With mountains grace, inner peace found. Haunted, haunted master of the mind. Guiding me in moments where true peace I find. Haunted, haunted wisdom in his hands. On the noble path he helps me understand. Temple bells chime, reality unwind. Guiding me to moments where true peace I find. Bounty, bounty, wisdom in his hands. On the noble path, he helps me understand.
So I don't know if y'all could hear that very well, but yeah, that's beautiful. I really needed to hear that now too. And that inspires me. So, with that in mind, let's continue on our journey of horribleness and recognition of suffering, recognition of dukkha. And step by step, we will build up the mountain of Dhamma. And thank you to Umeth. That's really an example of beautiful and profound generosity. So that's a good example for all of us. We should fall in love with the Dhamma. Okay, be well on your journey, and I'm doing my best to improve my health. But really, a lot of the development is, like I've talked about, we've got to eat a lot of shit. There's a garden in you, and that garden, just like the garden of the world, the earth, Mother Earth, is desperate for shit, desperate for human feces, humanure, right? So it doesn't quite make sense to the self to eat shit. You go to the toilet and you look at that and you say, I don't want to eat that. I want to get rid of that. But actually, this needs, creates the fertile soil for these seeds, the seeds of the Dhamma, the things that I'm, trying and failing miserably to talk about and to establish. That's what it needs. It needs shit. It needs compost. It needs things not being the way that I want them to be. And the more that you can eat shit, eat human shit, the more ready your heart, your body, your mind will be for the Dhamma. I can even feel it listening to that song, because like the video I posted recently that I've been sick, not just physically sick with the lack of food, suitable food here in India, but also mentally sick because a lack of spiritual food, spiritual nourishment, and I have kind of a big guy spiritually in terms of my needs, because I've, given up so many things in life, like relationships and things like that. So I have a lot of needs spiritually, and just being in this environment where, of course, my teacher is here, and I feel a lot of love and nourishment from him, but not having much Western community, Western contact, and of course, closing down the Discord server, so having a little bit less interpersonal contact through that as well. There's just been a real feeling inside myself of just a starvation for that spiritual community, spiritual companionship. And even in that sickness, in that difficulty, in that kind of lacking, that kind of loss, because I've been working more recently with loss, giving some things away, giving some positions away, that was a lot to give away, that Discord server, that meant a lot to me, and, nourished me in a very specific way that I wanted to let go of, to give away. I can feel the loss about it. But even in that loss and in that situation that I'm in right now, taking refuge in the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the Sangha, in this kind of path of spirituality, I can see, I can feel, and even in my daily life with the ups and downs here, I can feel how primed that soil is for love, for true love, for the Dhamma, for renunciation, for kindness, for generosity, for transformation, right? Turning that shit into fertilizer. So, drop the idealism. And keep trucking. Keep going. And metta meditation, as it was taught in the suttas, it's good to hear, Tio. The main sutta that I'm aware of where metta was taught, loving kindness was taught by the Buddha, was to a group of monks who were around the Buddha and part of the Sangha at that time. And a wealthy landowner wanted to donate some property to the monks. This is a big part of being a Buddhist layperson, being a donor. I was just talking on the phone with someone who works for Goldman and Sachs, actually, here in India, and was talking with them about this. But if you are a business person, you are a lay person, you can't be a monk or a nun. One of the big ways that you can be in contact with and be concerned with, because we kind of have to invest in our concern with this path, this community, this work, this practice, this way. It's just in the same way that if you invested in a company, you invest a lot of money in a company, or you invest your property in a company, you're going to be very concerned and involved with and remembering about and coming back to what's going on, right? What's it about? And what the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the Sangha are concerned about is the development of generosity, precepts, bhavana, meditation, samadhi, and then wisdom. So even though you can't be a monk or a nun, and this is a problem in the West, we want to have our cake and eat it too, so everybody wants to be the enlightened person, wants to be the teacher, wants to be an authority, but they don't want to sacrifice. And then it creates this total in-or-out mentality where I have to be like on the same level as a monk, or I am a monk, even though, you're not. Or you can't, or you have to kind of like not be that involved with it. And in Buddhist countries, that's not how it works. If you're wealthy, if you're a business person, if you're an important person, you donate land, property, vehicles, possessions, all this kind of stuff to get concerned with, to invest in the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the Sangha for yourself and for others. And that's how you're in it. That's how you're linked to it. Where you're attached, you take your attachment point, which is your money, your possessions, your power, and you put that attachment point to the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the Sangha. Because you're not just going to be able to attach to something that's about detachment. So you have to use your attachment to put it in that which is about detachment. And for a monk, my life isn't about money. My attachment points aren't about money. And my karma, like how I grew up, how I was raised, that seed never really planted in me. When I graduated high school, I didn't have any idea about getting a good job. I didn't have any idea about getting a good education, like college education, to then get a good job and having a house, having these things. I never had that idea in my mind for whatever reason. So money was never my attachment point. Of course, it's useful. So as a monk, I can sacrifice what is most valuable to me, which is my time, which is my freedom, which is my independence. And I sacrifice that to and concerned with the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the Sangha, and the teachings, and the way of practicing the teachings, the theory, the practice. So anyway, that's very, very important. And one of the most reliable ways to develop is that, going in that direction. Because otherwise you're doing what's easy. So, okay, watch a video by Ajahn Brahm, watch a video by Thich Nhat Hanh, watch a video by this person and that person and that person. Yes, that's beneficial. Yes, that's helpful. But it's also easy. Some people, they can't even do the at all, right? But you have to dare to detach from doing what is easy. You have to dare to do what is difficult to do. And sacrifice, giving what you are attached to away, is always difficult. By nature, it is difficult. Because the grasping, you're giving away the grasping. You're releasing the grasping. The grasping is the difficulty. So if you can't do that on your own, if you can't release the grasping, mindfulness and detachment only, become a Buddha immediately, then you take that grasping and you invest it, you put it into the place that is concerned with the dropping of grasping. And in this case, I apologize, but I'm a Buddhist monk. So the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the Sangha. I mean, I could talk about it for a long time, why it seems to be, the best by many metrics. It's not about best or worst. It's what works. It's about what works, Meredith. It's not about anything else. So it works or it doesn't. And you need to be aware enough to see that, to experience that. Not just Meredith, but anyone. Okay? So going back to the Metta Sutta. Oh, that's why I got onto that generosity point. So the Buddha was around, and there was a community of monks around the Buddha at that time, and this wealthy man donated one of his properties. Is a forested area, is kind of a property. And so the Buddha said, all right, donated to the Buddha, and the Buddha said, all right, monks, go and stay at this property and live there and do some meditation and you live your life there for a bit. Go and give it a shot. This man, donated his property, go there. So the monks went there and they tried to meditate, and they found out that this place was haunted by ghosts and spirits. And so they sat there, they tried to meditate, and they were accosted by these ghosts and spirits, and they were scared out of their minds. They were like, oh my gosh, we can't meditate here. But this man made this big action of generosity. So the monks left there, they ran away. They went back to the Buddha and they said, Buddha, I appreciate this whole situation, but ultimately it's haunted by ghosts. It's not good for meditation. We are not going to stay there. Come on. And the Buddha said, you went there, but you forgot your weapon. You forgot the weapon. So this is an interesting point about Buddhist philosophy and Buddhist praxis, Buddhist theory and Buddhist practice. It doesn't matter. There's no justification for violence because there's no justification for ill will. Unless you have ill will, you can't commit violence. You can't do acts that harm other people, right? So there's no justification. There's no weapons in Buddhism. You can't use a weapon. You can't kill. You can't harm others. You could harm others, but you would be going outside of Buddhist praxis. You would be going outside of Buddhist theory, because any ill will, even to someone who's boiling you alive, even to someone who's torturing you, etc., is not Buddhist theory. It's not Buddhist practice. Okay? So you can't have that violence, act in that way. So the Buddha said, wait, you guys forgot your weapon. The monk said, what are you talking about? And the Buddha said to them, you did it, you forgot to bring the weapon of metta. You forgot to bring the weapon of loving kindness. So metta is the only weapon that Buddhists are allowed to use. Buddha, the weapon that the Buddha gave for Buddhist people to deal with problems, to deal with ghosts and spirits of evil nature, causing suffering to you, accosting you, stalking you, harassing you, evil people, whatever. The only weapon that the Buddha allows is loving kindness. So if you have this problem, use the weapon that the Buddha gave you. So the monks went back to the forest and they practiced metta meditation. They were surrounded by ghosts, they were surrounded by demons and evil people and these kind of evil spiritual beings that were accosting the monks. They were just trying to sit there practicing meditation, but they were being attacked by all these spirits, and they practiced to use the only weapon that Buddhists can use, and that is the weapon of loving kindness. That is the weapon of loving friendliness. And loving kindness, loving friendliness can be extremely powerful. It can defeat people. It can overcome problems. It can resolve interpersonal situations. So the way that we develop metta And the way that we develop the power of loving friendliness or loving kindness, okay, is by a certain kind of formula. So for example, you may repeat internally, may I be happy. And this isn't a spell as such. You know, it's not like we're trying to adjust our psychology, right? We're trying to like influence our psychology. It's that we're using this phrase or we're using this wording to actually mean that. So it's totally different if we just say, have a good day, versus if we say, if we have the meaning, the heart, the intention, the sincerity, the reality of may you have a good day. May you be at peace with yourself. May you be free, right? May you encounter no difficulties in your life. So just saying that is different from just the heart of that, really having that power. And metta is about that power. It's not about the words. So we have to start by generating metta, loving kindness towards ourselves. And then we can extend that outwardly towards others. So metta is a very powerful way that we can develop on the spiritual path. All right? Okay, do we have any other questions? Any other questions or comments about Buddhism, meditation, spirituality, all that good jazz? There seems to be some kind of glitch in the matrix here, because it says there's like 150 people here. I don't know what that's about. But the moral of that story is really, if you have a lot of difficulties with a feeling of negative emotions, or kind of feeling like there's a self-criticism within you, or there's a constant self-judgment within you, like you beat yourself up, even if that's coming from the outside. So even it's, you know, you have like you're haunted by ghosts, or you're around people that are mean to you, etc. You should try to practice meditation through metta. Develop loving friendliness, develop goodwill towards yourself at the beginning. And like any of these practices, you try to do it seriously. Otherwise, there won't be much effect or much benefit from it. Okay, so question on anxiety, Theo. Where do you think anxiety stems from? Well, anxiety definitely stems from attachment to the body. If you weren't attached to the body, you wouldn't be afraid about what could happen to the body. And the solution that I found to anxiety, really before I got serious about Buddhism and meditation, is that I learned to turn towards it. So I noticed that the strongest thing that stuck out to me about feeling anxious was the kind of body reaction. So the heart would be beating very quickly, and I would feel like fear about the heart beating quickly, or maybe fear would arise and the heart would beat very quickly, and then I would have thoughts, anxious thoughts or fearful thoughts, or complicated thoughts about some reason for being anxious or some reason about being fearful. And I noticed that heart beating and the feeling of fear, the feeling of anxiety in the body seemed to be jumping back and forth between that thought or that reasoning, that justification, that idea, and the heart beating. So rather than just continuing to participate in that going back and forth between the anxiety I felt in my heart and then that story that I was telling in my mind, I turned towards it as something that I liked or that I was interested in. Like the fact that my heart was beating like that, because the heart is kind of beating profoundly, is beating powerfully at that time. When I turned my mind towards the heart beating profoundly like that, and I was kind of interested in it, the anxiety faded away, and then it really didn't come back. So since I used to have a pretty big problem with anxiety, and since I found that and worked with it that way, I basically have no issues with anxiety now. It's only a few times in my life since then, which is like 10 years ago, that I've actually had some experience of anxiety that was troubling for me. It's kind of like with hiccups. I don't know if anyone else has ever noticed this, but I found in myself, if I would be having hiccups, right? Somehow I kind of like that because it's spontaneous. It's like an interesting thing that's spontaneous that I don't really have control over, but that's happening. And it's not like dangerous. So, my heart beating is not dangerous. Having a hiccup is not dangerous. I found that by turning towards liking or being interested in the hiccups happening, being open to that, it seems like that calms down, that kind of fades away. And the other question from Theo: how do I become a Buddhist monk, and what does it mean to be a Buddhist monk? You won't like the answer. Nobody likes the answer to this because it's just a more comprehensive answer to what it actually takes to have success or development on the path, the spiritual path, the Buddhist path, whatever. It takes giving away what you don't want to give away. Abandoning what you don't want to abandon. Now, of course, becoming a Buddhist as best as you can, becoming a meditator as best as you can, reading books, maybe visiting some Buddhist temples, attending a meditation retreat, that's for sure. I mean, you want to experiment with what you're interested in, right? So you get a broader, a deeper experience of it and see if it's actually something you're interested in to that degree. But all of that takes sacrifice. You have to sacrifice your time, and sometimes you have to sacrifice your money to go to a meditation retreat, or you're making donations to monks or temples that you're involved with, or you're volunteering. And becoming a monk basically means you're sacrificing everything. You're not in charge. You don't have control. You don't get to pick where you go. You don't get to pick what you do. You have to abandon everything. Now, if you're willing to do that, which is very, very rare, very uncommon, especially for Westerners, okay, then you can become a monk. I can help you be a monk. You know, I can guide you onto where to start. If you're maybe like a young Western person, it's a lot easier for men to become monks than women in most temples. That's not true in my tradition, the tradition that I'm a part of, and the tradition that my teacher leads. But anyway, becoming a monk is about that, and then having a direct relationship with other monks. There's no other way to become a monk. So it takes a lot of dedication. It takes a lot of seriousness to renounce, to abandon, to give up so much of what, doesn't make sense to give up according to the culture, the society, everything that, I was taught, everything that we've been taught. Okay, Mildred Gamer says, how does a mother become a monk in the Western world? It is completely possible, but our tradition will need like centers in America. We'll need people to donate a property. We'll need a community that wants to help support the bills of that property. We will need, more people involved. It's going to take time. We're working to set up the infrastructure for that to be possible in the West, the Tabarwa organization, but it will take time, for sure. It's completely possible, and it's completely normal in Thailand and Myanmar, in the Buddhist community that, I'm a meditation master in, Dharma teacher in. But there's not the resources and the development yet to do that in the West, or to offer that in the West. I'm really curious about what's going on with the view count. Why it says there's 150 people watching. But that's one of the mysteries of life. There's definitely a real drive in me for these teachings to become more accessible and to get more people involved on a ground level of volunteering and helping to build meditation centers and joining our retreats that we do. But it takes time, and most people will come and go. Most people will not be a monk or a nun for the long term, or they will not take meditation seriously for the long term. So trying to get more people involved is more in the realm of advertising. And there's a great point for that. That is very useful. You know, even if I was like spending money to promote my YouTube channel, which, you know, this YouTube channel, of course, I don't do that, but even if I was to do that or were to do that, yeah, that would be good, you know, in some sense. There's nothing wrong with that. But my work as a monk and like my opportunity, how I'm able to live as a monk, means that I don't really approach things in that way, even though there is that drive, that desire, that inspiration for more people to get involved and more people to be building out this infrastructure of you know, my teacher's tradition and the tradition that I'm teaching in. I would say the two traditions I really see in terms of a community sense and a monastic sense that are most profound and most interesting to me and engaging for me so far is definitely the Plum Village tradition, the Thich Nhat Hanh tradition, and then my teacher's tradition. But my teacher's tradition is not, has not really developed so much in the West yet, just because he hasn't had time to focus on it. But it will go step by step. Yeah, so usually the right way to speak to a monk is Bhante. You can call me Bhante, and that technically or literally means Venerable Sir. It's just a respectful way to speak with a monk. Karma, cause and effect. You know, it just depends on the opportunities that are in different places, and then you know, having the support of the community to be able to go and do that. So someone helps me, supports me for a flight ticket, and having a place to go where I go to go and stay, and that's a big difference for, like, as I'm traveling as a monk, I have a place to stay at the meditation center or the monastery. I have food to eat that's offered by the community there. But I'm more of an itinerant monk. Now I wander from place to place to continue detaching from myself and detaching from the world. It's very difficult, but for my karma, it helps a lot for me to go more deeply into not being someone. And as time goes by, I will have more responsibilities. So maybe not able to travel as much. So I'm enjoying it now to be able to do that. There's a teaching here that's quite profound, quite deep, about how the Dhamma and how events like this and content like this, it gets more and more profound. It's all, I mean, everything is already subtle and profound. Everything is already everything. Everything is already mysterious, right? But it gets more aware of that the longer that you abide in that space, in that context, right? So when you sit down and practice meditation for 5 minutes for the first time, oh, okay, it's fine. But when you've gone into that for years and hundreds of hours and thousands of hours, etc., then it opens, it evolves more. And the same with like an event like this, like a Dhamma event. I can feel when I go into meditation, the accessibility of the depth of meditation is greater than when it began, because it's very involved and engaged to be hosting this. Whereas if you look at media, so if you look at TikTok or you look at YouTube videos, if you look at how people sell things or people promote things or people try to get a lot of views, right? Immediately, once you click onto that video, like if you watch a Mr. Beast video, today we're filling this entire monastery with water and we're going to try to scuba dive underwater for 24 hours. Here we go. And then there's special effects and the whole video is constantly stimulation. And this is kind of the opposite in a way. So you have to wait. You have to be patient. Have to put down your own idea of what you want to get from this to get that which is greater than getting. And when we cultivate, when we develop, when we generate, when we fuel generosity, when we fuel goodness, virtue, perfection isn't important anymore. Idealism isn't important anymore. It doesn't matter. So it changes everything. Let's say we're, some of my followers at that time came to spend some time with me in Italy. I guess it was earlier this year when I was managing our meditation center in Italy, South Italy. And so you can imagine, part of that being at a monastery or meditation center is volunteering. So cleaning, gardening, pruning, all these different opportunities for doing good deeds when living in community and at a meditation center, right? So when we do from generosity, there's no judgment, there's no possibility for judgment about if it was done in a specific way, or if even the idea of perfection is not there, because it's done as an act of giving. It's not done as an act of control. And this changes the entire environment of how we view ourselves and how we view the world. So because I practice generosity, because I practice precepts, and the real precepts are not, Bhante, you're breaking one of your monastic precepts because you have 2 robes. That's not real precepts. Real precepts is virtue. It's sila. It's mindfulness, right? It's heart. It's heart. Say, hey, it's like the police kick in your door and say, are you good or bad? I'm good. And you mean it. And it is that way. So because I'm practicing like that, and this is one of the main value points and like the precious points that I really see and hold in continuing my life to be a monk, is that that's enough. To be good, to be generous. And when I make a mistake, when I make an error, when I encounter difficulties, when I encounter some kind of interpersonal situation, goodness is the solution, and I'm practicing goodness. Goodness is there. Generosity or release or forgiveness is the solution, and release and forgiveness is there. And it's not about someone. It's not about this person and that person. It's not about our ideas of each other or our ideas of the situation. What's the solution? Generosity. What's the solution? Mindfulness and detachment, virtue, being careful, being wholesome. And allowing for that to be the solution means we don't have to idealize someone's perfect good or idealize someone's perfect bad. We don't have to idealize our own perfect good or our own perfect bad. We have the freedom to be. It's pleasant, it's unpleasant, it's neutral, no problem being. No problem seeing. No problem hearing. No problem breathing. And over time, that can become very embodied. And a Dhamma teacher, a community leader, a spiritual leader, that is their responsibility to embody that. But it's not about being perfect, not about being idealized. And it's more in terms of the gut and the heart than it is the intellect or the analyzing mind. Analyzing is good for building a monastery. Analyzing is good for building a structure, right? Architecture. Analyzing is not good for generosity. More like wholeheartedness is good for generosity. Wholeheartedness isn't frantic, right? The whole heart, the whole wisdom of the heart, the whole peace, the peacefulness of the heart, the natural abiding of the heart, the effortlessness of the heart. This this is a charger right here. Meditation is not about not thinking in general. Sometimes that is experienced in meditation, but that's not the main point. In meditation, there can be a spaciousness in the mind and a wholesomeness in the mind where bad thoughts do not arise. Negative thinking does not arise. This is an important experience and an important relationship to build in your meditation practice, that it's not about not thinking, but rather going into a space of peacefulness with what's happening. And then when that peacefulness develops itself, learn to be okay with unpleasantness, learn to be okay with neutralness, learn to be okay with pleasantness without attaching onto it. Be very aware of that experience. This is how we change the ego and restructure our psychology to be in line with the Dhamma, to be in line with the truth of not someone. So the view that I recommend is that in any situation, and situations usually have people, this person and that person, or you and me, etc., and they have something going on or things involved, right? Can be mental things or material things. In any situation that one may experience, there is a quality of spontaneity, of the happeningness. So for example, now I am Bhante Warapanyo, and you are who you are. You can leave a comment, if you want to be seen. And this is a live stream on Bhante's YouTube channel, and Bhante is such and such, and you are such and such, and you have these ideas, etc. Through YouTube in India, all these, he's talking about this and that, etc. And maybe there's intentions, there's reasoning, so much in it, right? And we may want to understand that. We may want to figure that out in some way. So that's definitely there. And that's a common kind of worldly approach. But there's also, I find, and I think this is very valuable, there's something mysterious about this. And mysterious in such a way that's not unsettling, but more inviting to spaciousness. The spaciousness of the direct experiencing of this. When I say this, you can consider it as like, okay, seeing, hearing, breathing, there's a body. And there's something very unique about that. And this uniqueness is a kind of kaleidoscope of happening that you, whoever you are, and I, whoever I am, is directly connected to, but that is not about you or I. And that from that constant kaleidoscope, that constant spontaneous experiencing and unfolding, you will show up and I will show up, and I want to talk about this and you're curious about that and all these things, right? But in the midst of all that, there's this constant kaleidoscope of the unfolding of direct experiencing that nothing reaches, nothing touches, nothing grasps. We'll leave it there for today. A little bit of mystery. Namaste.